Let's get the read from Economist, best-selling author, actor Ben Stein. Ben, your read of what you've heard, seen, what do you think?
I can't tell a damn thing about it, frankly. But the whole thing, the whole fact that this is taking place is almost unbelievable. I mean, the fact it makes me feel like I'm on drugs. I just can't believe that we are meeting this incredibly brutal, violent guy who's the head of one of the poorest countries in the world, but who did invest a few $1 billion to get nuclear weapons, and now we're treating him as if he's a tremendous big shot, and I guess he is if he's got nuclear weapons. It just seems as if the world has turned topsy-turvy. Here we have the head of the world's richest, most powerful country traveling halfway across the world to meet him, to meet Kim Jong Un. Why? What are we going to get out of it? He's not going to denuclearize and give away his weapons. He has nothing without that. He's going to be torn to pieces with it by his own people if he gives up his power.
So you have serious doubts whether we're getting anything out of this. In fact, we're the ones putting more on the line and potentially compromising ourselves.
I hope and pray it works. I pray for peace all the time. Peace is the most wonderful thing in the world. But I just cannot see how Kim Jong Un can make a serious gesture to change his country around. It's basically like saying, I'm going to commit suicide, and he doesn't seem like a suicidal kind of guy, but maybe he is. One never knows. We have not had good results dealing with the North Koreans. That's putting it very mildly. I don't know what would have changed to make us suddenly start having good results, and I cannot imagine why he would say, okay, I've done all these things to make my incredibly poor, destitute country a big player on the world stage. Now I'm just going to give them away because I like Mr. Trump's smile. I can't understand why he would do that.
Do you think the president's being snookered?
I don't think the president's being snookered because I think it's a good thing for the president to be seen as a man who's trying to make peace. And I don't think President Trump is the kind of person to be snookered, period. But I just cannot see what great is going to come out of this. Now, maybe I'm missing some big thing, but we've seen the North Koreans cheat so many times. It'd be very hard to find times when they haven't cheated. When we're not going to go to war against them. My dear friend Senator Lindsey Graham said the choice is between making a deal or going to war. Senator Graham is out of his mind. We're not going to war with North Korea over anything if we can possibly avoid it. The choice is just to continue the same
Lindsey
regime.
Graham had ruled out the third possibility that we'd continue as is, and he said that President Trump wouldn't go that route. There's no guarantee that's the case
But I think we will continue to go that route. We'll just continue arguing and yelling and screaming back and forth. And as I say, what's in it for Mr. Kim Jong Un to just walk away from all his power and prestige and might that he has taxed his people so heavily for? I mean, by the way, his people are not such happy people. They're the poorest people, just about, not entirely, in the northern hemisphere. They live in a very, very frighteningly brutal state.
What was in it for Mao Zedong when he met with Richard Nixon?
That's a very, very good question. Mao Zedong was an old man who was dying, and he knew he was very ill, and he knew that he had only a certain amount of time in order to make some changes to pull this country together. And he had seen the incredible tumult that went through the Cultural Revolution. There's been no Cultural Revolution in North Korea. There's no place to return. There's been nothing that makes them want to return to normalcy and to some kind of peace and order. And maybe if there had been, then maybe Kim Jong Un would say, I want to go back to a peace and order. But the Chinese had gone through a very bad time, and they needed some kind of help from the United States. It's hard to see what kind of help the North Koreans need from the United States. They're not going to let us come in there and invest and send in all our software developers and so forth. It's a dictatorial, totalitarian state. They're not going to want Westerners wandering around there.
So what do they want? They obviously wanted these talks. To what end?
I think they do want these talks because it makes him seem like a tremendous big wheel. And maybe I'm wrong about all this. It's entirely possible that I'm wrong. I make a great many mistakes. Maybe he has woken up in the middle of the night and said, I see my brothers and sisters in the South. They're a rich, prosperous country. They've picked themselves up after a brutal Korean War and made themselves into the 6th largest industrial power in the world. I want us to be a power, too. We are a great people. The North Korean people are an incredibly talented, hardworking people. with the right kind of leadership, they could be one of the most prosperous countries in the world. Maybe Kim Jong Un saw that, but does he see it and want it enough in order to give up his place in the world and maybe his place among the living? I have my doubts, but I pray that I'm wrong. I pray that this will be more like what happened with China. I pray that that's true and that I'm wrong about being pessimistic.
What would disavow that notion? What would you like to see once this meeting lets up to maybe make you rethink what you just said?
I would like to see, to use the phrase that you used a few minutes ago, I'd like to see some front loading. I'd like to see them say, all right, we're going to let in quite a number of Western inspectors or international inspectors to see what we're doing, and I'd like to see them make a report on what our nuclear situation is and our ballistic missile situation is, and then I'd like to have them give that report to all the responsible parties and see whether we can make some moves towards disarmament. It is possible that he might want to disarm the North Korean and South Korean parts of the peninsula at the same time. That's a possibility. There have been rumors that he said to the U.S., well, you have to give up some of your nuclear weapons, too. We're not going to do that. There's no chance that's going to happen at all. But I'm not sure what I would like to see, except I'd like to see a completely different Kim Jong Un and a completely different North Korea. Look, this is a country Americans cannot even imagine. It's so totalitarian. It is so brutal and locked down. We can't even imagine it in our country. Can he suddenly change all that? I mean, Red China under Mao Zedong was not as locked down as North Korea is. But maybe I'm wrong about all this. Maybe Mr. Un has awakened with a vision that he wants to be an entirely different person. Maybe he's decided to become a Christian. I don't know.
All right. So, Ben, I'm largely optimistic about the prospects of these talks. Always good seeing you. Thank you, my friend.